and we have a call on the line. So, Eric, back to you.
All right. Joining us right now live on Class X Radio is the United States Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul. Senator, how are you?
Very good. Glad to be with you, Eric.
Senator, there's a lot that, and I want you to have the opportunity, like anything during our phone call here, if there's anything that you want to discuss, feel free to do so. I would like to start with the big question right now is generally the presidential election. I know you've been going out with Romney a lot. I saw you on television in Ohio. Obviously, Kentucky's not a state an issue, but as a United States Senator of Kentucky, how do you see things right now in the presidential election?
Well, I think within Kentucky, the word is out. President Obama, even as a candidate, declared war on coal, and that message got out throughout Kentucky, and you don't find many Democrats supportive of the president. We had 42% in the Democrat primary that voted uncommitted for president. In Ohio, it's more evenly split, and it's starting to come our way. I was in southeast Ohio a week or so ago, and there's a significant coal reserve there too, and they also fear another 4 years of the president. I think Ohio is moving in our direction, and I think nationally, I think Romney's really cleaned up in the debates. He's just a much better debater. He's been on mark. He's been on cue. And the president's had such a lackluster performance that I think that's really hurt him.
Another thing I'm anxious to ask you about is the emails and Libya, as you know, because you are a United States Senator, you've ran an election. The bottom line is trust. The big issue of trust is always a number one issue in any political campaign from city council to president. I think that this Libyan, a lot of people, your average Joe, may not really paying attention, but it looks like it is clear that the entire White House, the political operatives, the State Department, have just lied through their teeth about this. And I think that it harmed him. And, at least independents, a lot of independents pay attention to what's going on in the world. What is your perspective on that issue relative to the Libya cover-up?
Yeah, by all appearances, there seems to be a cover-up of incompetence. The first question is, why were there no Marines guarding our ambassador in the first place? And the second question is, if this firefight went on over 7 hours, why were no Marines airlifted into him? I'm sure the distance between Tripoli and Benghazi by helicopter plane could be made in probably an hour or two. And I don't understand why there wouldn't have been gunships in to help the ambassador during this firefight. But really, to me, it's inexcusable that there were no uniformed Marines with him to begin with. Who made that decision? And if the buck stops with the president, I think the president needs to immediately fire whoever made that decision.
I agree with you. When you ran for the United States Senate and you beat what would be considered an establishment candidate and you were a Tea Party darling, I'll never forget when you came out to Bulldogs Roadhouse and Independence and other places, but I loved, and I'm made up with the Tea Party, I'm all in, because they're regular taxpayers who care about America. I want to compliment you and get your perspective on this issue. When you went to Washington, right off the bat, you were like, well, here's $800 billion of cuts. Here's right this year, boom. And I'm not kidding you, Senator. I'm sitting there saying, hey, he's the only guy in America that gets it. If you've got a $1 trillion plus yearly budget deficit, what are we talking about trying to get rid of the deficit over 10 years? Why can't you do it now? And I don't have any hair, Senator, but I was thinking to myself, Rand Paul from Kentucky, God love him, seems to be the only one who wants to end the budget deficit problem right now. What's that experience like, being the only one that wants to end it now?
Well, my question has always been is you get to Washington and their thought process is completely the reverse or the opposite of what any person would have the common sense to propose. So what did President Obama propose? We have a massive deficit. He says, let's spend more.
I know.
We have less revenue coming in because we're in a recession, so let's spend more. And all I'm saying is we should only spend what comes in. We bring in over $2 trillion every year. That's a lot of money. All I'm asking is just spend what comes in.
Right. I always use the common sense approach that if we were fine in 2008 from the standpoint of only being a few $100 billion separated. Are you telling me that if we turn the clock back 4 years, that we can't live on government to that extent? I mean, it makes no sense. Now, another issue, see, I pay attention to what you say, Senator. Another big issue recently with you, the national headlines, is foreign aid. And I think nothing has been better for your issue than what's going on in the Middle East, Pakistan, Egypt, Libya, on and on. So tell the ladies and gentlemen of the American jury your thoughts on foreign aid.
Well, I think we shouldn't send money to countries that are burning our flag and chanting death to America. In Libya, they allowed our ambassador to be attacked. They did not protect our embassy or our consulate. In Egypt, we didn't have deaths, but they did crawl all over our embassy, burn our flag, and raise the Islamist flag. That shouldn't be allowed to happen, and it's inexcusable. So what I said is they shouldn't get any more aid until they say they can and will protect our embassy. When Libya turns over the killers or the assassins of our ambassador, and when Pakistan frees the doctor that they've imprisoned for helping us get bin Laden, if they decide to cooperate as allies, then they'd get it back. But the bottom line is I don't have a lot of use for the foreign aid anyway because we've got to borrow it from China to send it to Pakistan, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And let me tell you something, and I know you've been accused, just like anybody in the Tea Party, you got to get accused of whack job and they're crazy and right-winger. And one of the things that I was on like green on grass from the get-go is 4 years ago when they didn't let your dad have a podium on the stage of the presidential debate, and I was like, what? And, of course, this time around, he was given that podium, he was given that stage, he was given the opportunity, and I always say, you know what? Ron Paul was right. Now, I don't agree with everything your dad does, but 90%. What is it like for your dad and you, because I think you're probably a disciple of your father's views for the most part, to be someone while we're in these trillion-dollar wars, to be individuals, because it's almost like popular to be a hawk, you know. It's like you can't be pro-military and pro-America unless you want to go to war. And I'm with you. These wars have been absolutely terrible. I'm somebody that said George Bush was the worst president we've ever had until we got Barack Obama, and now he's the worst. But what's it like to be against all this silliness and hear him talking about, well, we're getting out of Afghanistan, and you still got 70,000 troops there? I mean, that's got to drive you nuts in Washington.
Well, I think what we're finding is that, my dad's message attracted a lot of young people to the Republican Party. His message, he can go and speak on at Berkeley in California, not the most conservative campus, but get 8,000 kids to come out. And a lot of it is that he believes in a less aggressive foreign policy. But I think people are ready for this, and I think the Republican Party needs to wake up and encourage a libertarian wing because there are certain states we're not competing in. We're not competing in California, Oregon, or Washington, most of New England. And I think a lot of these people have been turned off to the bellicose message of many Republicans, might be turned on to a more reasonable message that says, yes, we should protect America. It's the number one priority of our federal government, but that doesn't mean being everywhere all the time, in every war all the time. It means defend America, be strong, have the weaponry it takes to defend America, but it doesn't mean we always have to be at war.
Another issue which is near and dear to both you and your father, and I agree with you, is the printing of the money. And I thought Mitt Romney did very good in the debate on foreign affairs, the last debate, injecting the economic problems in this country in that debate. And, of course, he quoted Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Admiral Mullins, who said the biggest security risk we have is our deficit and our debt. And I know you know the Federal Reserve policies well. You know what it means to be printing money. You know what it means with this debt issue. You always say it very clear. Will you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the American jury your position and your concerns about Ben Bernanke and the Federal Reserve and the printing of money and the devaluing of the dollar?
Well, the most common letter to the editor in my local newspaper in Bowling Green is always complaining about rising and high gas prices. So what I tell people is it's good to be angry, but you got to know why your gas prices are going up. They're going up because the value of your dollar is going down because they print up money to pay for a massive debt. So the working class senior citizens, those who are poor and don't have a lot of extra money, need to realize that when their earnings get stolen, their earnings get squeezed by inflation, they should and need to blame it on big government, because deficits drive the Federal Reserve to print money to pay for the deficits, and then that causes prices to rise. And prices rising always hurts the poor and the working class and senior citizens the worst.
I agree. What's your dad doing these days?
Well, he's still been giving speeches, and I think he's going to continue doing that. And he may also do some political commentating after the election when he is no longer in office.
My final question to you, Senator, and this is a curiosity question, and if you don't want to answer it directly, I know that you're depth enough not to do this, but I could not help. I get the Courier-Journal. I'm probably one of the few people in northern Kentucky that reads the Lexington Herald-Leader and the Courier-Journal every day, and one of the reasons why I do that is so I know what's going on. I also get the Columbus Dispatch. I pay attention to Indianapolis. But I recently read how Senator McConnell, who I've always had a personal relationship with him that was pretty good when I was active in politics, but there's no question that Senator McConnell has been an establishment Republican. I could not help but go, wow, when I saw that he was using your dad's campaign manager, somebody that obviously is very much involved with the Ron Paul campaign, and then I know that he was at Frankfurt for that rally that was held down there, and I just have to ask this question, is the other United States, the senior senator from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, is he a genuine convert to what's going on in this country as far as the Tea Party and fiscal responsibility? And one of the things that I argue, Senator, all the time is I blame the Republicans and I blame the Democrats. And I wish Romney and Ryan would say this. The biggest difference is the establishment Republicans in Washington, I think, have gotten the message, thanks to you and the Republicans and the Tea Party taking over the House in 2010, that they've got the message, and you are the ones that have forced them to change. The Democrats, on the other hand, Pelosi and Harry Reid, pedal to the metal, off the fiscal cliff. But the Republicans, at least who helped cause this problem, have seen the light. So my question to you is this a good sign for America that senators like Mitch McConnell are becoming converts?
Well, I think what one of the biggest issues of the Tea Party was opposition to the bank bailouts, but then also opposition to Obamacare. And,
right.
Senator McConnell's been a leader on that. He got all 47 Republicans in the Senate to be unanimous in their opposition to Obamacare. He instigated 4 lawsuits against Obamacare. So I think on that issue that he's been right with us the whole time and actually been in leadership and trying to keep everybody together. So I think that the message of the Tea Party, opposition to Obamacare, Senator McConnell's been right there with us.
Good.
And on other issues, we may not agree on every issue, but I think the number one issue in our country right now is the debt, and I think he definitely gets that and knows that we have to begin cutting spending.
Do the two of you have a good working relationship?
Yes, we get along fine, and we are excited about the campaign manager, Jesse Benton. He's worked for my father, worked for me, and actually is married to my niece. So we're really excited about him coming back to Kentucky. He spent a lot of time here, and I think he'll be a great campaign manager.
I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night at my dad's house at the fundraiser for Thomas Massey. I'm going to come. My dad told me to bring a check, but I look forward to seeing you. Keep up the great job, and always remember, Senator, that I am probably one of the few plaintiffs' lawyers in America, you being a doctor, that supports medical malpractice reform for the greater good.
Thanks a lot, Eric. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Rand Paul, the junior United States Senator from Kentucky. And that was fun, and I think we covered all the main issues that I know he likes to talk about. And he's doing a great job. Isn't that amazing? You got a $1.3 trillion, and he's the only one who says, well, let's cut 800. Nobody else wants to do it.